Because if you have a child who is being disrespectful, the last thing you want to do is be disrespectful back to them.
Right. If they're bullying you don't want to bully them back, right?
Exactly. Like if your
whatever.
kid tells you to shut up, you don't turn around and say, no, you shut up. It's like,
you're escalating the problem.
Yes. Not only are you escalating, but you're also treating them as a peer.
Right.
And that is not good. That is not your child.
They're going to have a lot of friends in life. They only have one mom, one dad.
Exactly. They are not your peer.
Welcome to the podcast. We're glad you joined us today. You had many options for podcasts today, and you chose us, and we just want to thank you. We want to thank you for joining us.
And so the question today that we want to talk about is, and we hear this from parents occasionally in really crisis situations where they feel like the inmates are running the asylum.
I was just thinking that. I didn't know you were going to say that. That's so funny.
That the kids are running the house, and parents get frustrated and don't know what to do. And yes. I think that I hear this not even just in the way some parents talk about their children, that it's like very a power struggle or a combative kind of role, like it's us against them kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. What we want to talk about today is how, when the kids take over, when you feel like you're no longer in charge of your family, you're no longer in charge of your household, you feel maybe pushed around, maybe even unintentionally, but that you're no longer in charge. Yeah. And that can be frustrating, that can be debilitating, that could, lead to a lot of other challenges. And when you're like, my kids just aren't listening anymore. Yeah. And that's a dilemma.
I think it's good to recognize that there is some healthy pushback, that children will always test boundaries, and that's okay. And to kind of recognize what is healthy and then what is more out of control, or even like parents feeling bullied through like aggressive pestering and even verbal abuse from their children. So there's a difference there. Yes. And we want to kind of draw that distinction and talk about
it's a big deal.
How to prevent it from getting to that point.
That's right. It does apply. And I think it's a good topic for all of us to unpack, because there are parts of all of us who have struggled with this through seasons.
Definitely.
And there are some who have let it establish and become more of a lifestyle and a way of habit, or a habit of the home. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. Before we jump into today's topic, I think we've mentioned this before, but we have an amazing date night opportunity that we want you to join us for. Father John Ricardo and Mary Guilfoyle. Yeah. I think I'm saying her last name right, Guilfoyle. And they are going to be coming on for a public date night. So April 30th, right? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I should have written that down or had that in my mind. April 30th, it's a public date night. So this is a great opportunity for you and your spouse, for you to even get couples into your house to all watch together live. I'm
telling you, you'll have a good conversation.
It'll be powerful. Yeah. It will be really powerful. And we're going to explore both the differences between men and women and complementarity, as well as the complementarity between priests and lay.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I really want couples to come is because we were actually just talking about this with our teams group. I think there is a growing misunderstanding of the role of husbands and wives in marriage.
Yeah.
And I see it as, to be quite frank, I think it's dangerous. I think it is not of God. And I think that it is a reaction to some of the errors of feminism, but it's going way too far back in the wrong direction. Yeah. And I think that is so important that we talk about this. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, you need to come and listen to this, because I think Father John has an amazing perspective. His doctoral thesis was on Ephesians 5. Right. And husband and wife and submission to each other and the roles of husbands and wives in marriage. And so even though the topic is a little bit broader, because we are talking about men and women, but it is a very important topic, I think, for husbands and wives, especially young husbands and wives, or young people who are thinking about getting married or engaged. If you're parents out there, you have adult children, have them log on and listen to this. I think it's going to be a powerful conversation.
It is. It's important, an important time for such a time as this, that we need to really embrace what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. Our world is starving for true masculinity, true femininity, and how those differences aren't necessarily a grave reason for conflict, but a reason for complementarity, and see why it's needed both in our home, but in our world today.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're also in May heading right after this.
2 weeks. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. Like 2 or 3 weeks after this podcast comes out.
And then we'll be heading to Australia and New Zealand. So if you are in Australia or New Zealand, we need to see you, because we don't know when we're ever going to get back there.
Yeah.
This is our second time going over, so we're hoping we're going to see a lot of friends show up at different functions that we have in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah. Yes. So please check out the Archdiocese of Sydney is sponsoring this tour. So please go to their website and you can check out, get all the information, all the links there.
All the events.
And the Diocese of Hamilton in New Zealand, you can go to their website to get information there. And
Auckland.
Evangelion in Auckland,
right.
in New Zealand. So, and yes, we are going to do the Hobbiton tour.
Was there a question?
And we're so excited about that. It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
We will put up pictures on our social media, so start following us.
Yeah. I will make some good Hobbit trail videos for you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this. Now, I do have to give credit here. I read an article I even forget where I read it, but it was an article about a psychotherapist, Sean Grover, who wrote a book. Let's see. The book is called When Kids Call the Shots, How to Seize Control from Your Darling Bully and Enjoy Being a Parent Again. So I read this article and I thought he's a secular guy, but I thought he had some really, really great insights. Yeah. And so obviously some of this is our own thoughts, but some of it is from this article and some of these ideas. And so I just want to give credit to him for that.
And what we want to set up here, kind of the foundation, right?
Yeah.
Is the difference between, and you kind of already alluded to this in the beginning of the show, but the difference between kind of this more aggressive bullying and taking over from kids versus normal testing of things, right?
Yes.
Because we need to understand that there is that testing can be just normal, maybe a little bit of disobedience, maybe even a little bit of defiance, but it's kind of in the normal strain.
And I feel like the way we say it's like it's kids' job to do that.
It is.
They have to do that.
And kids learn by testing those boundaries, right? It's our job as parents to set up the boundaries, and it's the kids' job to test those boundaries. But that's how they learn, right? And we can go into that a little bit more, but then this idea of more aggressive, more kind of defined by some verbal, maybe even physical, like,
as they get older,
hitting mom and dad, whacking them with things. There is a level where there is a normal part of testing those boundaries of kids being rude or disrespectful, but then there is a level of aggression that comes in that usurps mom and dad's rightful role. And
I think the biggest thing,
and that's the concern, right?
The sign of that going over the line is the disrespect, persistent disrespect, and even aggressive. A verbal, aggressive disrespect towards mom and dad. Right. I don't mean just like in a moment of passion saying something like "I hate you," but I mean like that is their attitude. That is their fundamental disposition towards mom and dad, is that mom and dad are not in control, and I know it.
Yeah.
And I am the one that is saying what to do. I am the one who is telling mom and dad, this is what I'm doing and what are you going to do about it? And that I think is really is difficult for many reasons, but I think that it is it stems from a problem with the parent that has now led to a deformation of the child, because the child is not ultimately the problem, right? So a child is not born a little demon person, A child is in need of formation,
right? Because good,
right?
Sorry, go ahead.
But the problem is that when parents give up that responsibility of formation for several reasons,
right,
the child is not receiving the formation that is the God-given responsibility of the parent.
Because kids actually have a right to good formation, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
And from a kind of just, again, a Christian anthropology, understanding that your child was created good.
Yes.
Right? You don't need to beat the hell out of them. And you also, but they do have a fallen nature. They have a concupiscence, right?
Sure.
So therefore they
need formation.
They need formation, right? So it's they are not completely corrupt and need to get the hell beaten out of them. And they also are not perfect angels. They are human beings.
Yeah.
They are not, they're this wonderful mixture that need formation. And that's our job. And I really believe that's part of our, that kids have a right to a mom and a dad who form and educate them.
Right.
And because when kids test those boundaries, the normal process is that they lovingly learn how to be formed and shaped by their parents, because that gives them great stability in their home. It gives them great self-control. It teaches them a certain level of self-reliance, self-confidence, and it also gives them the ability to form a sense of identity. Because when our kids when the inmates are running the asylum, it actually creates a situation where those kids no longer have a clarity of who they are. And when you create rules, when you create boundaries, and those are done in a loving way, it actually gives them the ability to create an identity within that, gives them the safety that they need to create that kind of identity.
Yeah, I think that it's really important that we recognize that the boundaries that we set for children, they really do help them form who they are.
That's right.
Because it's if you think about like a boundary, like a fence, like a child has to realize this is where my will ends and the world begins.
That's huge.
And children explore that in many different ways. They explore that when they're toddlers, when they recognize I can run away from mommy. Mommy and I are not the same person. I can separate from her. But we as parents need to say, yes, but the boundary is when I call you, you need to come because there is danger outside of yourself.
And I am the mom, I am the dad.
Right.
And you are not. And that, again, just even that thing helps actually affirm who they are.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And you give them that level of freedom with that boundary. So where do we end up? Why do we end up in a place like this?
Well, I think that when parents become neglectful, and we're going to actually talk about different types of parenting, but I think just to recognize when parents are not enforcing those boundaries, then the child has an undue amount of pressure then to realize, oh my gosh, I'm in charge.
I know.
I'm the one in charge. And as somebody who is a leader, I am telling you, it is very stressful to be in charge.
Yeah.
It is a very, very stressful thing.
It's a burden that they don't deserve to have at that time.
Exactly. It is a burden that they are not equipped to carry and that they should not be carrying. And for them to know that they are not in charge, they need to know who is in charge.
That's right.
And it needs to be firmly stated in a million different ways, not just verbally, but it needs to be firmly stated that mom and dad are in charge, and your children need to know that. And they need to know that by how you treat them and by what you set up within the home. And I think that a lot of times when parents are really tired, when parents are distracted with their phones, with what they want to do, with the things that they don't want to do that. Yeah. And they are, to be quite frank, selfish. All of us are selfish, right? I'm selfish as well. But part of my path to holiness and being a parent is learning to become selfless. To say, no, I have to put down my phone and I need to discipline my child, have that conversation with my child, enforce that boundary, because this is the job that God has given me.
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
But this job is very, very important for me to recognize that it's not just about having peace in your home, okay? Because I think sometimes parents come to us looking for discipline because they're like, like Bill Cosby would say, like, parents don't want justice, parents want peace. And there is some truth to that. But we need to see our job as more than just, this is not just about getting your kid to do what you want them to do. Again, as a source of laziness, for the parents. Oh, I'm just going to sit here and my kid's just going to do what I need them to do.
Right.
No, it needs to be I need my children to know the boundaries and to know I mean what I say because it's good for them.
That's right.
It's good for their formation.
It's an act of love.
It's an act of love for their own self-identity. As hard as it may be for me to continue to enforce that boundary, for me to limit their will, because what happens is when I set that boundary, what my child is learning is ultimately self-control.
Right.
Because when they come up against, I don't want to get up in the morning to go to school, for example, and they recognize, oh, okay, if I don't do that, then I am going to be grounded this weekend. Okay, next time I'm going to get myself up. So the child is then learning, this is what I have to do to succeed. Yeah. These are the things that I have to do. And they learn that in small ways over time, right. And they learn that from the time that they are 2, 3, 4. They learn when mom calls me, I need to come.
That's right.
And you provide those consequences. Then when they're older, they learn about going to school, getting their homework done, doing their chores, getting home on time. Then as they get into the teenage years, they need to learn that as well. So we're constantly expanding our children's boundaries as they mature, right? And changing things. You allow your 14-year-old to do things that you don't allow your 5-year-old to do, right? Because they have achieved more freedom and more self-control. But the thing is that there's always boundaries.
Yeah.
There's always boundaries until your child gets to adulthood.
And what we're doing is we're looking out, and again, so all of us as parents, just be reflective for a moment and say, okay, so our kids have XYZ behavior that's frustrating, isn't listening, isn't obedient, is out of order in some boundary or whatever, right? And you look at that, and you might be tempted to say, my child is the problem. That they're not entirely wrong, but what we need to do before we look out at your child is look inside. Look at you, right? And those who've been listening to the podcast, you won't be surprised at this, but really the foundation, like when you're looking and saying the inmates are running the asylum, the kids have too much control, our first step needs to look inside our own hearts and minds and our own kind of personal history. Be reflective on our own background. There's different people who say it different ways, but everybody comes with a playbook, a parenting playbook, and that is based upon our history, or at least heavily based on that. So the first foundational idea here is to look and say, what in my own background has influenced me, has got me to this point. And not that your kids' problems are all coming from you, but we need to make sure that, as we said even more recently, right? It is not your job to make your kid into a saint. It's their job to make you into a saint. And part of that is that they are partly the diagnosing hand of God in your life, bringing out stuff. And so now we need to be reflective and say, okay, how were you raised? When you look back, what were formative experiences, positive or negative, from your background? Asking deeper reflective questions of your own personal history so that you can own it. And because, what is it? Is it Aristotle? The unreflected life, right? The importance of if you don't know yourself, you cannot really truly be a parent.
Right. And I think that that's really where it stems from, in that when parents allow disrespect in their home, when they allow their children to create their own boundaries, really, ultimately, it's the parent showing that they don't have respect for themselves. And if you don't have respect for yourself, then your child is going to lose respect for you.
That's right.
And so if you tolerate your children doing what they want, you tolerate your child being disrespectful to you in small ways, then guess what? That is going to escalate when they push that boundary and they just walk right through it and there's no boundary there. They're going to keep doing. You taught them that. So yes, it's kind of like when you were saying at the beginning, our nature, all of us have a nature, right, that is sinful because we have original sin, and that's going to run amok, and that will run amok.
That's right.
Without formation. And really, we have to look at ourselves, because your child is not the problem.
Yeah.
Your child is not the problem. And I really want to emphasize that to parents. The child is not the problem, because you don't want to get into this power struggle with your kids of like, they are bad and I'm the poor victim here in my home.
Yes.
No, you are not.
Right.
You need to look at yourself and say, where have I lost respect for myself?
Right. Because if I'm allowing my child to treat you this way, I think, just to emphasize again what you've already said, but are you allowing your child to speak to you, treat you this way, to show this level of disrespect? I'm sorry. First, let's start with you.
Yeah.
Let's start with, do you believe you're worthy of respect?
Right.
Again, not to be harsh or condemning, but just say, wait, out of what is this allowed to happen? Because you're tolerating things. Mm-hmm. And why are you tolerating them? Again, there might be a laziness. There might be all these other things that have played in. But first I have to start with and say, do I believe that I am worthy of respect? Do I believe that my spouse is worthy of respect and being listened to?
Right.
And if from that, then maybe there's healing, maybe there's issues, maybe there's stuff of your past that you need to look at and deal with so that you can deal with what's here and now
and going
today.
Back to the podcast that we did on identity. Like, go back and listen to those, and listen to our podcast that we did with Father Sean about healing. Because ultimately, you need to know that you are a son of God, you are a daughter of God, and you are worthy of respect. And God has given you this mission. He has given you this job of being a parent, and that is worthy of respect. And you want your child to respect you, because ultimately they need to respect the Lord. Mm-hmm. They need to respect God as their heavenly Father, who loves them, but who has authority over their lives. And authority is not a threat. Authority is protection.
Yes.
And that is the attitude we need to have when we exercise our authority over our children, is that I'm exercising this authority not as a power struggle, but I'm exercising this authority because I'm protecting you. Right. And that's what God, our Heavenly Father, does to us as well. And so ultimately, when you're talking about being self-reflective, we need to be self-reflective on our own identity. So thinking about, for parents, if you are experiencing this problem with your home of disrespect from your children, to ask yourself, how was I parented?
Yeah.
You know,
what's my experience of authority and discipline?
Right. Why do I avoid conflict? Am I afraid of conflict?
That's right.
Am I afraid of standing up? Why am I afraid of that? And this may be something you can talk about with your spouse, or you may even need professional help to work through this. That's a good thing. Your children are worth it. Your children are worth it, because you have to parent from that place of good psychological, mental, and spiritual health.
That's right.
Of knowing that you have that dignity. You have that dignity, and also modeling for your children, because from that place of healing, from that place of firm identity, you need to then model for your children the correct way of handling conflict, of expressing frustration. You know, you're modeling for them by the way you treat your spouse, by the way you interact with the world, and even by the way you treat them. Because if you have a child who is being disrespectful, the last thing you want to do is be disrespectful back to them.
Right. If they're bullying you don't want to bully them back, right?
Exactly. Like if your kid tells you to shut up, you don't turn around and say, no, you shut up.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're escalating the problem.
Yes. Not only are you escalating, but you're also treating them as a peer.
Right.
And that is not good. That is not your child.
They're going to have a lot of friends
peer.
in life. They only have one mom, one dad.
Exactly. They are not your peer. And so like we keep kind of coming back to, first of all, you have to look at, okay, what's going on inside of me? What is my personal history that I am tolerating this type of behavior from anyone?
That's right.
Let alone my children. So you really, really need to start with you. And let's just talk about then, in this book, he talks about the 3 different ways that parents can be pushed around by their kids, like the 3 different types of parents, because they're not all the same.
The styles of parenting, right?
Right.
And the first one is the guilty parent.
Yeah.
Right. The guilty parent. And
I think actually a lot of parents fall into this.
Well, and because we feel guilty.
Why do we feel guilty?
Because we screwed up, or
I think there are so many homes in which both parents are working.
Yes, and
I think that parents feel guilty about working too much and not being with their kids.
And so And it could be, and I'm going to say this, that I might be touching on the other one, is that, there are times where whether we're not giving enough, we feel like our kids deserve everything. We love our children, therefore we want to give them everything. And if we can't, whether it be our time, our money, or our
just freedom, giving them too much freedom.
Yeah. And then we overcompensate because we feel guilty because we didn't provide X, Y, or Z, or they didn't, in our mind somehow. And that creates this false parenting. It's really a false parenting style because for our kids now are receiving this overcompensation, which then we allow them a lot of leniency.
It's instability. They don't. It's kind of like there are no boundaries, and so they don't know where the rules are, and they're just like, okay, wait a minute, I can do whatever I want. Okay.
And what I found is that in reflecting on this, I look back on my own parenting. When I got so angry with my kids, I would overcompensate in the next round, wanting to, and again, this wasn't like I was always the guilty parent, but then there were seasons where I'm like, okay, I just yelled at them. I was so harsh with them. And then I try to cover up what I was lacking earlier by overcompensating and kind of was like, I'm not going to worry about that. I was so harsh with them earlier. And again, this could be, we're primarily talking about a style and a pattern that's happening over time. But I think we can even see those little seasons or those moments.
Sure, we can. It's good to be aware. Then the other style is the anxious parent.
Yeah.
Parents who are constantly worrying about their children. They're constantly worrying about their kids, and they are really communicating to the child in many ways a lack of trust.
Yes.
That I don't trust you. I don't trust, not even just I don't trust you, because of course there's different levels of trust for your children, of course, but more like I don't trust that you can handle difficulties on your own. And so I need to come in and I'm constantly worrying about you, communicating that to your child. And really what that really creates, especially in teenagers, I think a real resentment.
Yes.
Because they want to be independent. They want to be treated as an adult. They don't want mom and dad to be worrying about them all the time.
It creates an anxiety either within them or this deep sense that they are always being controlled and left out and missing out and failing to thrive, in their own development and growth.
Right. And then the third thing he talks about is the fix everything parent.
Yeah.
The helicopter parent, because in many ways the helicopter parent comes in and also communicates that you can't handle this on your own, so I need to come in and do it. Yeah. I need to tell I need to go with you when you're a teenager to the barber and tell them how to cut your hair. I need to, instead of allowing you to talk with your teacher about some test that you took, I need to come in and talk with the teacher. I need to come and talk with the coach instead of saying, yes, I'm going to bulldoze through everything and take care of it because you can't do it yourself. So it's not so much anxious and worrying, but it's instead saying, kid, move out of the way. I'm going to come in and fix this. I'll take care of this,
never giving them the freedom to do that, which leads them to really a lack of self-esteem as well as they're no longer, they're kind of either feeling very entitled to the world around them.
Definitely. It's like my parent is my servant. Oh, I'm going to have my servant come and my assistant is going to come and fix all of this up for me so I can just kind of sail through, not have any issues or problems or whatever. My parents are going to buy for me whatever I need. Like instead of like for one of our daughters, when she was doing cheer over the summer, I was like, well, you need to, this is expensive, like these uniforms and stuff. And so you're going to have to help pay for this. And she ran a little girls camp, and made a whole bunch of money and gave me half of it so we could buy her things for cheer, right? And so it really wasn't the fact that I needed that money or not, but it's the fact that she had skin in the game.
Yes.
And that I was like, you're not just going to get this. This is not entitled to you. You're going to have to work for it too. And, and I'm there to help her out and to support her, but having some skin in the game as opposed to, oh, I'm just her servant. Oh, yes, your majesty, you need this. Yes. I will supply it for you. Whatever you want, my darling,
And I'll add we're going to add a fourth to this list of three for us. And we probably could add more, but the explosive parent.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. This is the parent that ignore, explode, meaning they tolerate, they ignore things, they don't really engage, and then they just lose it.
Yeah.
And that is it's like treating every problem with a jackhammer, and that it's coming in with a bomb when a conversation might be more in accord.
And I think that there is a difference between moms exploding and dads exploding. I think when dads explode, I think that leads to real fear in children and a lack of trust. I can't trust dad because I'm afraid of him.
Yeah.
And I think with moms, especially in boys, when boys see their mothers lose control, they're not afraid as much as they think, I don't respect this woman who cannot control her emotions.
Yeah. Or they're walking on eggshells as if their life now has to be, and it basically leads to kind of a secrecy and a children leading a double life.
Yeah.
And it could be said in some of these other ones as well, but it's creating I've got to learn how to deal with the emotional explosions of my parents, whether that's more dramatic and yelling or more an emotional
But in all of these, what's happening is that the child is getting the message, my parent is not in control, and I am the one who is in the driver's seat here. I'm in the one in the driver's seat.
All four of these are leading that. All four of these are helping contribute to your household being out of control.
Right.
And everyone, again.
And a lack of self-control in the child, because that's ultimately what you want, is that you want your people in your household, everybody has their own self-control, and, testing and learning as they go, but having that self-control, and then people can operate together in harmony.
Because I believe at the core, our mission as mom and dad is to love and to teach our children how to love.
Yeah.
And what happens in a household like this, we're undermining our very mission.
Yeah.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. And we all need to be frank and honest and authentic with ourselves and say, are we stepping into one of these four parenting styles that is actually hurting our children and deforming them for our future? And again, there's the reality is that we all have moments like this. So it's not to feel like, oh my gosh, woe is me. It's a matter of let's be reflective so that we can step more fully into the right path for giving our kids what they really need. And it's both good for us as a human person, as well as for them and their future.
And from the place
let alone the world will thank you.
And from that place of self-reflection, you should be then acting the way that you want your child to act.
Yes.
You're modeling for them the respect that you want them to show. They're modeling for them a healthy respect for other people, a healthy respect for them.
Yes.
Most importantly, you need to be modeling a healthy respect towards your spouse. Because if you are bullying your spouse, if you're telling your spouse what to do, if you are arguing with your spouse, if neither of you are respecting each other, your children are going to model that.
Yeah.
Even if you're respecting your child, but you're bullying your spouse, your kids are going to be picking that up because they're seeing, oh, that's the real way that you're supposed to treat people.
I heard it said that our kids pick up about, they learn and they take on as formative 10% of what we say to them, but 90% of what we do.
Yeah.
The modeling, the power of modeling, and the most powerful relationship in the home that they will model how they treat people in general is your marriage.
Yeah.
So how you speak to your spouse, how you treat your spouse, the way that you choose to die to yourself to serve.
Right.
It shows them, because our kids are learning how to love. I just said this in an Instagram video recently, but it's like our kids are learning how to love by watching the way you interact with your spouse, by the way you love your spouse. That is more powerful than any word, any teaching that you can ever do. And then obviously modeling how you're treating them. Of course, that comes into play as well, but it's more powerful in the spousal.
And I think it is so important that wives respect their husbands and respect dad's leadership in the home and show that deference to dad. I think that really honors fathers and it helps the children to honor their father as well, which again is learning that authority is for protection.
Right.
And likewise, I think it is so important for the children to see dad listening to mom and respecting mom and saying, well, honey, what do you think you should do? What do you think is the best thing to do? And giving mom a break sometimes and really showing again that mutual submission, if you will. Yes, moms and dads have different roles in the home, but I think that when we can beautifully model that for our children, how dad is really holding up mom, of like showing her that respect, showing her that dad respects mom's opinion in certain areas. And likewise, in the different spheres of influence that parents have, I think that's just such a powerful way of children seeing, oh, this is how men and women relate. Oh, this is how not just I respect mom and dad and I need to model that, but how I respect men and women in my life.
And again, I'm just going to call it out, right? We talked about this earlier, but like the whole kind of more fundamentalist view of male-female roles becomes such a problem when you recognize that this is how your children, both girls and boys, are learning how to relate with other individuals for the rest of their lives by how you relate to each other as spouses. If you see yourselves as one dominating and controlling the other spouse, that is what you will be teaching both boys and girls in your family. Say, that's normal. That is to be expected. That's how we interact and how we relate.
Right.
And when you can look and say, mom and I are equals. We're different. We have unique and powerfully, unique roles given to us, but we are equals.
Yeah.
We're equals who submit and love each other. That is two very, very different roles. Because are we saying that in the home that our mission is to love, or our mission is to power and control and to over dominate or blah, blah? I'm like, no, this in our home, we need to make sure, both moms and dads, because it can go on either side here,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Moms can quickly be in charge and treat dad as if he's one of the kids.
Yes.
Dad can jump in and treat mom as she's one. No. Time out.
Yeah.
There is something powerfully beautiful about the complementarity of the unique giftedness of mom and dad, of the men and women married, united in a sacramental bond that's both ordered towards love.
It's the Trinity.
It is.
It's the icon of the Trinity.
And
always go back to Pope Benedict.
So that is the primordial way to kind of make sure we're having a healthy parenting style, is beginning with that understanding that your marriage is the fundamental model.
It's kind of like identity and then belonging.
Crazy. But it's out of that flows, right? And something that I really appreciated that he talked about was, we already mentioned like kind of the self-reflective part where you as a parent need to be reflective, almost mindful of what's going on in your heart, what happened in your past. But the part that I really was just so appreciative of that he brought in was the self-care.
Yeah.
And not in a self-indulgent way. We've talked about this idea before, but that, bringing your A game to parenting requires that you're filled up, that you are full, you are whole. We're not talking about excess, but if you can picture, and again, you got this from, I think Susan Potvin, but the idea of the water cooler, right? And for both mom and dad, right? You're a water cooler who's meant to pour yourself out.
Yes.
But you need to be filled up.
Yeah.
You need to be filled, or that image of the cup, right? And your parenting ought to be an overflow from God, from your own self-care, from your marriage, so that it flows out to your family. Now, again, there are days where your cup is going to be half empty, or whatever. Maybe it's half full. But what we need is to recognize that there is a natural, normal part of our life as human beings. We need a good night's sleep. We need to have some exercise. We need to have joy, leisure. We need to connect with friends and others, right?
We need time to pray.
So
need
that we
time
can
to be loved by the Lord.
Because that gives us a greater core, a greater center, and allows us not to just feel like my kids are there for my satisfaction. Like, again, we've talked about this before, but in order for you to have the right relationship with your kids, you can't be looking at them for your emotional support. You can't be looking at them for all the affirmations, right? You're not, because again, when you're a guilty parent, you could feel the manipulation of your child, like, oh, but we never get to go out and play. Oh, I never, can get on the Xbox, or I can never, all the kids, you could feel that guilt rising up into you, like, I want to give the best for my kids. If you were looking for affirmation from your children. But if you already received that from your spouse, you received that from friends, you feel filled up by, for me, like going out on a good hike and feeling energized, I bring my best self to my parenting. And I won't be driven by their demands. One of the funny things we used to say growing up, or having particularly the younger kids, is we don't negotiate with terrorists. And sometimes you feel like that with your kids. You feel like they're terrorists making demands and they're going to blow up if you don't. Right. And we need to be...
Stay strong, parents.
We need to be the adult in this room, right? Which requires us to say, what do we need to bring our best self to our parenting? And again, looking at the beginning of your relationship with God, looking at your relationship with your spouse, looking with how you are caring for yourself, recognizing that you're worthy of having leisure time. Yeah, moms who are in the throes of children everywhere. Hey, Dad, maybe it's time for you to make sure, hey, is mom, supporting her in such a way that you can say, mom is spread thin right now. So I'm going to take over doing X, Y, and Z that she normally does, but because out of mutual respect and mutual submission to each other, I'm saying, I want you to thrive.
Yeah.
My wife, I want you to always remember that before you're mommy, you're my bride, which then gives mom greater strength to go back into the battle, if you will, and to have that stability, because together you can make this work. You can make your house thrive. And when you recognize, hey, this is what I need. So, that's probably a great question before we get into the do's and don'ts, is, how am I being fulfilled in my relationship with God, my spousal marital relationship? Are there things that I need to grow in, that I want more from? That's not wrong to want more love, support, and encouragement.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But again, there's also a part where it's just on you as a mom or dad to say, this is what I need to go and have a little break right now so that I can come back and be more fully present for this.
So let's do some do's and don'ts.
Let's do
that. So we're going to start with the don'ts. All right. So this is like a little bit of a summary and maybe a couple more, like kind of fleshing out some of the things we started talking about. First of all, don't ignore, disrespect, or excuse harmful behavior.
So true.
Because I think that happens, especially with the guilty parent. They say, oh, I'm sure it's because I was gone all day. Oh, it's because we didn't have enough money for this. Oh, and you kind of like can blame yourself. Do not excuse or ignore that.
Yeah.
Because that's part of not picking up that responsibility that God has given to you.
And I would say that oftentimes when we ignore things, we aren't really ignoring them. They're just building up inside of us. And that's why we end up as an explosive parent.
Right. Because what you allow, if you allow something, it's just going to continue.
That's right.
It's not going to go away.
Build.
Exactly. Don't give in just to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And
peace
I know
at any price is not worth it.
Sometimes, believe me, it's so easy to just be like, oh my gosh, just give her what she wants to stop the screaming.
And I'm just tired.
Yes.
Either at the end of my day or, this second season of parenting that we're in,
Yes, Mike and I are very tired. Yes.
So we get it.
Yes.
But again, and not that you have to fight every battle. We're not saying that either, right? But that just simply...
the important battles. Yeah. I'll give you an example. When our youngest, when Claire was little, when she was like a year old or whatever, and Mike was traveling a lot. When Mike wasn't home, I was so tired because, she's number 10 of 10. If she didn't want to go to bed by herself, I'd just have her sleep in bed with me, which I never did with any of the other kids. I would just be like, oh, I can't do it. She just would sleep in bed with me.
That explains a lot.
But then when Mike would come home, Mike is like, she is not sleeping in bed with us. And you know what? When I even tried to put her down by myself to go, even if Mike was home, I tried to, She was like, no, I want to sleep,
Because she knew. She's like, Mom will give in if
Mom will give in. But I
think
swear,
that pattern
Mike
continues.
But then Mike would go and put her to bed. He'd come down 5 minutes later. And I'm like, how did that only take you? He's like, she just, I just sang the song and just laid her down. She knew the boundary. At 12 months, 18 months old, she knew the boundary.
I think there's no critique of you, but
that's okay.
But after 10 kids, you're allowed. Okay. You as a parent, and again, it could be one or the other. That's the other beauty of this is that you are not parenting alone.
Yeah.
And you can tap out and say, I need you to test.
Yes. So whenever Mike was home, I'm like, you putting her to bed because I'm not going to do it. And
it was great. And it was a superpower that I developed. Right.
Yes.
But it is one of those realities that we need to create because our kids need to feel safe and that somebody else is in charge.
Right.
And if you have a child who is very strong-willed or who that strong will serve them in the future and you will admire it. But that day is often not today when they're fighting against you. But if you create that wall, it gives them greater peace and stability.
Okay. So another don't do. So don't give in. Don't yell. Don't yell. And we have our re-release.
Why were you looking at me when you said that?
On yelling. I think it just happened right before this podcast last week. Don't yell, don't threaten, don't bully back, because what you're doing then is you are modeling for them the bad behavior that you don't want them to have. Like we said before, they either will be afraid and then start hiding and sneaking, or they lose respect for you because they're like, this person cannot control their emotions, so I can't trust them.
Yeah.
And that is bad all the way around. And then another don't, and I remember an older mother told me this when I think Katie was probably 12 years old. She said, you have to learn to not take things personally.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that is such great advice, because your child testing the boundaries, even your child being disrespectful, I'll be honest with you, isn't really about you personally, because your child is not your peer. They are not your peer. This is about something, this either they're testing the boundaries or you have done something that has lost their respect, and it's your responsibility to get it back. So you cannot take things personally.
And
you have to look at it.
It can feel that way.
It does feel that way.
It can. It doesn't always, right? But you also just need to be reflective on it. Take the time. And again, this is why we need those pauses.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what's going on? Being curious with what's happening inside of you so that you can be more effective as a parent. And we talked about it before. Don't seek your affirmations for them so that you can be their parent and not their peer who just, I can't believe he said that to me.
Right.
Again, to your spouse, or just on your own reflecting, bring that up, bring it to the light of day so that you can dismiss it and say, that's ridiculous.
Right.
That's ridiculous, right? We need to be able to do that. All right.
And then
keep going.
Don't be that helicopter parent.
Right.
Don't come in and try to fix everything or overfunction, because then that really creates a resentment and even anxiety in your children.
Yeah.
I think that one of the reasons, like the book, The Anxious Generation, that Jonathan Haidt wrote is really part of it is just showing that when parents try to come in and fix everything, all it does is make kids more anxious.
That's right.
And then also last, don't isolate yourself. Don't isolate yourself in
Huge.
shame, because I think your children need your engagement. And you ultimately, like we said, are required by God.
Yeah.
You will have to answer before God. God will ask you, what did you do with this soul that I entrusted to you?
Yeah.
I entrusted to you. Together, man and woman and God created this child. And I'm giving them to you to raise. What have you done with it? So isolating ourselves and kind of falling into our own shame, it's not an option. And get help if you need it. And I really do want to emphasize that. If you really do feel things are out of control, I think more than anything, you need to start looking in yourself and saying, what is it in me that is not strong enough to begin dealing with this? And go and get the help that you need, because your children are worth it.
And so the isolation both to your spouse, right? Into your caving into yourself, but also don't isolate from your kids. Now, again, there might be levels where you're feeling really overwhelmed and frustrated in your parenting. Mm-hmm. Well, deal with that, but then come back and not in the the times where you always have to correct. Find positive occasions where and again, this is kind of almost the flip of this, don't isolate, which means make sure you're investing in that relationship with your child.
Yes, and that we'll get into the do's. Go ahead.
All right, so first do is really maximize your time in relating with your kids, right? The whole idea with rules without relationship breed rebellion.
Right.
And so we need to make sure we're pouring into our relationship with our kids outside of those correcting moments, because we're not trying simply to control behaviors. We're about forming their hearts and their minds. And that happens in a relationship. So do spend time with them.
Right.
Go out of your way that you can have fun with them. So that again, if the whole point is that we're trying to love our children and teach them how to love, well, you need to enjoy spending time with them. So find ways that you can delight in them and spend that time with them.
And then set clear, consistent boundaries. We started this podcast talking about boundaries. Really, we have to learn. You don't need a lot of rules. The longer we have parented, the more I realize that you need actually fewer rules.
That's right.
Because when you have children who recognize your authority, they kind of know. They know through our family culture where what is forbidden and what is acceptable and all of that. But when we have few rules and consistent rules and boundaries, then I think that really serves the children and gives them that real sense of security. And they feel safer when they know what the rules are.
We're at a distinct advantage for those who are just starting out, because we stressed out, I think, wondering, are we getting it all right? Do we have enough rules? Do we have enough controls, boundaries to keep them safe? But having 10 children, we can look back and say, oh my gosh, we were so stressed out about all these things. And now we see it's not all the rules that mattered. Again, rules are important. Boundaries are vital. Absolutely. But we stressed out about having so many. Yeah. And as a parent, I just didn't want to get it wrong. And now seeing our adult children flourishing, raising their kids well, being self-adjusted, being in good, healthy relationships with them, wanting to spend time with them and them wanting to spend time with us, as well as them living the faith and raising their families, getting married and so forth. It's like few rules done really well. Right. Know what's most vital and really go hard on those without having a lot of rules.
And then when if your kids do act out, it is so important to look beyond the behavior and to really ask yourself those questions. How, and we talk about this in our discipline guide, are they tired right now?
Yeah. What's going on? Hungry?
Are they hungry? Are they frustrated? Are they feeling overwhelmed?
Is there something outside of this entire situation that's affecting them?
Exactly. Are there issues at school? Are there issues with their friendships? So really kind of like look beyond that. Sometimes they just need, consistent boundaries, and you need to give them those consequences. But sometimes it's really good to just kind of take in the whole, I shouldn't say sometimes, you should always take in their whole person.
That's right.
Right. And see them as a problem. They are not a problem to be solved. They're a person to be known.
Right.
And I think we always have to remind ourselves of them. The kids are not the problem. And we need to look at them as a whole person, because that's why we would want to be looked at.
That's right.
Again, speaking about ourselves in kind of keep coming back to this, but really take that pause. Take that pause before reacting. When you have a child who is showing you disrespect, pause for a second. Why? Because you want to model to them correct, respectful behavior of saying, you may not speak to me like that. Or dad saying, you may not speak to my wife in that manner, right? Or that is, you should not be doing that, and saying that calmly and saying, I think that you need to go to your room and we'll talk about this later. Mike, you had that conversation with one of our children who was being extremely disrespectful. And instead of reacting and exploding in anger, just taking that moment of saying, oh God, please help me. And saying, we're going to talk about this in the morning, go to your room. And that is a great function of the go to your room direction.
Yeah. The pause needed for you.
Exactly. Because you really do have to have that pause, because you want to model for them self-control and respect. When they are exploding and then you are exploding, that is bad on so many levels. And it's not helpful for anybody, because if it's just really, then it comes into a power struggle of who can be louder, and that's not really what you want. Okay. And so along those same lines, I think that once we And if you find it difficult to pause, if you find it difficult to model that behavior, you need to work on yourself.
Yeah.
You do work on your own triggers.
That's right.
And your own things, and to be aware of that.
You need to recognize that there should be no person that can push your buttons, right? Those buttons should not be accessible, especially not to a 4-year-old or 15-year-old. You are the adult.
Yes.
And I know it's not easy, and all of us are a work in progress, and be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
But do not settle for allowing someone, your child, to push your buttons. Mm-hmm. Know that you have them, and work on with your spouse, with a spiritual director or a therapist or counselor. Mm-hmm. Work on that such that you can deal with it. Mm-hmm. And that you can come up with strategies and behavioral changes so that you can be healthier and whole. Right. You will be better, and your children will thank you as well. And
I think it's so important to remember, nobody should be allowed to push your buttons, especially not your children. Do not use that excuse. That's not acceptable. So what do? You encourage responsibility, and you encourage independence, right? And you ask your children. I love asking my teenagers, what do you think you should do? All right, here's this difficult situation. What do you think you should do? I support you in that. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. All right, you have to clean your room. Instead of just being mad at them and telling them the same thing over and over again, and I actually did this with my teenage son because his room was just driving me crazy, is going in there and helping him go through it. And just realizing, I think there's too many things in here. Right. And he really resisted. He was pushing me back and, was ever like, not physically, but just like saying, no, I got it. But I'm like, you know what? I've been asking you to do this too many times. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to help you. He
needed that.
Right. But it's encouraging. Okay. And you know what? I will be honest with you. When I went in there, I saw a lot of good organization. And I told him that. And I said, I see how you've organized these things. That's awesome. That is great that you did that. And this is a good idea that you've done it like this. Now we just got to keep it up. Yeah. and keep putting these things away.
But the knowing, kind of like go back to some of the other problems, it's like our children are not the problem. So if we just say that out loud, the children are not. However, they may have a problem.
Yeah.
And as a child, they're probably going to need you to come alongside them.
Yes, definitely.
And again, depending on the age, you give more and more independence and more freedom and more opportunity for them to mature and grow. Mm-hmm. But you shouldn't expect that they should know how to do everything.
Yeah.
They are not adults. Yeah. And they may not have the same gifting. Alicia, you have a greater gift for organization and bringing things together in the right pattern and creating a process or whatever. And it's like, they need you for that. Not all the kids have that. Not every human being has that, right?
Right. And along those same lines, I think that in being that support for them, sometimes you need to teach them, and giving them that independence, you also need to teach them how to express their frustration. If they are frustrated with you for some reason, if they're angry with you, like I had a listener say that their child is leaving them little notes, little bad mommy notes around. He was like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old.
I wasn't laughing at that part.
And I think that there is something about a child being free to express their frustrations that it's just like, I'm sure you're really frustrated right now. Helping give them those words are just like I would say to my kids when they were mad or they were angry. I would say, you are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to be angry.
You're allowed to be frustrated with me right now.
You're allowed to be frustrated. And you know what? You need to go in your room. But you cannot disturb this entire household with your emotions. You can go in your room. When you've calmed down and you're ready to talk to me, come back. We use that all the time. Yep. And actually, my daughter was telling me she's doing that now with her 3-year-old. She would say, because he's a very sanguine personality. He's adorable. We love him so much. But she would say to him, go to your room. You can go to your room. When you're ready to come out, I'm right here. And that's also a way to give you that pause, Yeah. But it's recognizing it's okay to be upset. You're allowed to be upset, but you're not allowed to yell or throw things or disrupt our entire meal because you are upset. Right. Like, that's really not fair. But giving them those ways, or even just saying, I am angry. Like, I've heard some moms do that with their kids, and I think it's great. Yeah. Like, you can say, I am angry right now. I am frustrated.
And it teaches them, again, when you are able to model for them what good self-control looks like, that you're not bringing negative emotion.
Right.
You're not reacting to their lack of obedience or disrespect or whatever. You're also creating that safe space, if you will, for them to express their emotions
and I think
in a healthy way, so that they recognize their emotions aren't bad, but they don't need to rule my life.
As opposed to, so instead of trying to squash them down by having your own emotions go up, sometimes it is good to provide that empathy and saying, I understand you're really, I would be frustrated too. I'm sure it's really hard to be grounded right now. And I know you were really looking forward to this. And I get that, I would be frustrated too, but this is the situation, and I think even with little kids, I do that with my grandchildren a lot now. Your toy broke. That is so frustrating. Like it is, if I'm working on something and it messes up, I get frustrated too. So, and then the last thing that we want to encourage you to do is just have that support system.
Okay.
Recognize that you are not parenting alone.
A family alone is a family in danger.
Yes, yes. And if you want to be a great parent, you need to be an amazing spouse. You have got to rely on each other for that modeling, but also for the grace. And also for the sounding board, and also working together for this, and turn to other parents if you need it. Ask other friends.
I think it should be normative
that
parents are in close relationship to other parents, because you need to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to say this, that we have been here. We have been in every situation here, right?
Yeah.
But you need to hear that from tangible, living human beings who are in your neighborhood, who are going through it with you. At the very least, there's empathy involved, but I guarantee you there'll be some encouragement, some wisdom, some insight that help you navigate through this.
All right. So check out our key takeaways and our list of do's and don'ts. We'll have that in the show notes. But until then, I think this is a great kind of like ending on that couple discussion of like talking with your spouse and asking, where do we struggle the most with consistency and follow through?
Right.
Like, where do we struggle together? How can we be better at this? And then also really doing some reflection, maybe on a date night, and saying, hey, this is how my parents handled my frustration. This is how my parents handled boundaries. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like.
Yeah.
And like, kind of it helps you to be self-reflective when you can talk to your spouse about it, of just like, this is what my childhood was like. What was yours like? And have that common playbook together. And then from that place, align your boundaries, and being like, okay, here's our common playbook that we're going to operate off of. Here's the boundaries that we're going to do, set together for our kids. Few boundaries, but firm.
Excellent. Do you want to close this in prayer?
Yes. In the name of the Father and the Son of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Oh Lord, we just thank you. Thank you for loving us so much and for the children that you have given us. I just ask, Lord, that you give us all of the grace. Give us all the grace we need to parent our children and to really provide for them those safe boundaries. And for us to really be a reflection of you, Lord, and of your authority, which is protection. Help us, Lord, to willingly accept your authority in our lives, and to train our children to willingly accept our authority in their lives, so they can more quickly say yes to you. And in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.